There is nothing stronger, is there, than that military oath that you take. Let's talk now to the former head of the British Army, Lord Richard Dannatt, who joins us now. And I have to say, Lord Dannatt, you're talking to a military spouse in me and a military mum in Anne. We know how strongly this is felt. And actually, the members of the armed forces, we know, are going through a real sense of shock now, aren't they?
Well, absolutely. The armed forces, along with the rest of the country, very much having to come to terms with something, as your last conversation suggested. We thought perhaps would never happen. Well, of course, logically, one knew one day that the Queen would die. But I think when we all woke up yesterday morning, having heard the news on Thursday, we had to sort of pinch ourselves and think, well, is it really true? Well, clearly and sadly, it is. But I think, as you were just alluding to in the introduction, there is a very special relationship between members of the armed forces and the sovereign, because we swear this oath of allegiance on the day that we join. When I can remember 28th of August 1969, I love cricket and I was watching Essex play Leicester at Chelmsford. When the players went in for lunch, I went to the local army recruiting office and I swore in for the day prior to going to Sandhurst, held a New Testament in one hand, said the words of the oath, signed some documents, and was paid a day's pay, £1 2 and 6pence, which was the equivalent of the Queen's shilling. I went back to my seat before the players came out and thought to myself, you've just joined the army. Was that the right thing to do? Anyway, I then had 40 years in the army and thoroughly enjoyed it. But actually, it was service to the country, but it was service to the Queen as well. And as you were also just alluding, it's now a question of people getting used to service to the King. And any recruits joining the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, as of yesterday, will have sworn that oath of allegiance, but it would be to King Charles III, his heirs and successors. And that's why it makes it so special being a member of the armed forces.
I was going to ask Lord Dannatt, is part of the passion, in a way, that members of the armed forces have, is that this isn't just, it's not just a service, is it? Because there's also, they know the respect the Queen had and now the respect the King has for those who they know may end up laying down their lives for them.
You're right. And of course, there's another dimension of it being personal as well. The Queen and other senior members of the royal family all enjoy honorary appointments. Every regiment and corps of the British Army has a royal colonel-in-chief, as indeed do ships and naval bases in the Royal Navy and air stations and squadrons in the Royal Air Force. And again, that's not just a paper thing. The Queen, the Duke of Edinburgh, Prince of Wales, all the members of the royal family actively visit and support the units for which they hold an honorary title. So that link is a very practical link, it's a very personal link, and you genuinely feel that an interest is being taken. For example, when we were having a large number of casualties from Iraq and Afghanistan who were being treated at the old Selly Oak Hospital in Birmingham, which was a pretty run-down Victorian sort of place, although the clinical care was very good. Regiments for which the Prince of Wales, then King Charles now, was the colonel-in-chief, he would write a handwritten letter to all the soldiers that had been injured and send them a bottle of whiskey. Now, that was personal and that was real. And actually, it just made a tremendous difference to those soldiers to think, gosh, my colonel-in-chief, he knows I've been injured. He's written me a letter. My goodness, he sent me a bottle of whiskey. That is very special. You don't get that, I'm afraid, with all due respect. You work for a large supermarket or a multinational company.
No, you don't. Where were you when you heard the news of Queen Elizabeth's death?
I was in London. I'd been in the House of Lords during the morning. I started to get messages from various people, and one began to put two and two together and realised that unusually the palace was issuing a statement which it was not in the habit of doing about the Queen's health. And frankly, one or two of us came to the conclusion that there is real substance in this, almost along the lines of, well, it must be true because otherwise they wouldn't be denying it. And therefore, come 6:30 in the evening, it was no great surprise when the announcement was actually made. Tragic, very sad. I was back in Norfolk by that stage. My wife's Lord Lieutenant of Norfolk, so it's been quite hectic here, and will be for the next few days. There we go. We can celebrate everything that Queen Elizabeth II was, and we can look forward with hope and anticipation to the reign of King Charles III. And I think we all agree that his speech last night was magnificent, very measured, very well thought through, confronted all the issues, and frankly, we can look forward with confidence to a new monarch leading us forward.